And I want to start with a pretty small company that reported earnings. Their name is Exxon, which I love the management team on Exxon because unlike Chevron, who reported last week, reported $35 billion in profits, right? In profits. We're not talking about revenue, profits, right? The Chevron announced, even I think a couple of days before, the week before, they announced a $75 billion buyback, which is 20% of its company's market cap, and raised its dividend, which the politicians, they went crazy, right? Then they didn't know what to do. They're like, oh my God, this is crazy. Ironically, even though they're responsible for these insane profits, right? But they criticized the oil giant, all of them, how it's making profits by destroying planet Earth. And they want to tax the hell out of these companies even more than already being taxed, much, much more. And all this. But it's just so funny how, these policies, which have led to this, right? The ESG policies and things like that. But unlike what Chevron did, which kind of like threw it in the politician's face, Exxon didn't announce a huge buyback. Even though the oil giant generated, I can't believe I'm going to say this number, $56 billion in profit for 2022, right? $56 billion in profit. Let's put that in perspective. Only 20% of the companies in the S&P 500, 138, have a higher market cap than $55 billion. A market cap, the market cap of $55 billion. These guys produce profits of $56 billion for the year. If you look at the market cap of the entire U.S. solar industry, in terms of pure plays, right, doesn't include the companies that have solar operations like utility companies or EV companies like Tesla that have it buried within their organization. But just to show you how big this is, right? So if you take the solar industry, U.S. in the market caps comes to around $60 billion. These guys generate $55 billion in profits. So you see how big Exxon is. I mean, even better, the $56 billion in profit, it equals $6.3 million an hour. That's how much money that they generated. And this not only set a record for Exxon in terms of profits, but a historic high for the Western oil industry forever and ever and ever, which is incredible. That's the number that they posted. ExxonMobil, from the call, they did say the White House needs to get its facts straight because they're attacking them because the company generated more profits than anyone because they invested more than anyone. They invested a ton of money, which is good, which is jobs, right? That's what you want. They also said prices are determined by supply and demand. The more work governments do to limit supply, the worse the situation will be, right? Factual, and that's what our politicians are doing. Management also said Permian production hit a record. And you say, okay, well, that's normal. Let me tell you something about the history with Exxon. Exxon really missed. You can't say they missed now because they have record production there, but the whole shale revolution, they were very late to the party. They didn't see it coming. They didn't want to invest in this early on. Very early on, 2010, 11, 12, when I started covering this industry, I traveled to the Permian, I traveled to the Bakken, I traveled to the Eagle Ford. These are the three major areas in the U.S. With Permian, we drove through even Eagle Ford, 22 different counties, Cactus and I. We also went to the Permian, which he lives in Midland, right? So Exxon being late to the party or slow to the party allowed companies like EOG, Pioneer to become industry leaders in shale, even Continental, which is the Bakken player. But even based on these numbers, and you're looking at the Permian, Exxon still trades at 8 times forward earnings, which is incredible. And surprisingly, analysts are expecting earnings to come down from $14 in 2022 to $11 next year and $10 the following year, which I find insane. I understand the conditions, I get it, but given how much stock Exxon can buy back from the massive cash flow they're going to be generating, the profits going to be generating, again, they could do that later on, which they would do. Also, given the landscape where internationally, we're seeing a massive ramp up in drilling. Massive, right? Because many years they turn to alternative energy, and now we see the dire situation Europe putting itself in a position where they're so reliant on Russia for its energy needs. And also, when you look at ESG is not going away anytime soon with these policies, which forces or mandates the use of alternative energy, regardless if it's economical. I mean, we're not saying, hey, take a certain amount of profits and invest in this. We're mandating that this is the way it has to be, which is why Europe and all these countries within Europe who decided, hey, you know what? We're really going to just limit the amount of fossil fuels. You see what happened to them because now they're turning to coal, right? Again, which is ironic. They're turning to coal. Look at all the news stories. They're turning to coal because they got lucky. It's been a mild winter so far, and I'm very, very happy for that. But they got lucky, and let's see, because it might get colder going forward. Not so much in the U.S. That's why you've seen oil prices come down this week. Even where we are, it's like 75, 78 degrees, almost 80 degrees in North Florida. It's usually seasonal here. It's probably around, I would say 55, 60 here normally. All right, so much warmer here, and I think a lot of places in the U.S. But looking at the bigger picture, and you need to understand this, Well, the politicians and the leftists, right, which you read all the time, right, since they control the media, and they go crazy about the profits being produced by these energy companies, being energy independent, having the biggest energy companies in the world, having unlimited shale potential, especially in the Permian. We could drill deeper in areas, the lower Sprayberry, Wolfcamp, A, B, C, D. Guys, look it up. I mean, understand more about the Permian. Again, this is a place I visited personally. But if you look at the Bakken, right, and the shale area in the Bakken, it averages, and this is the pay thing, right? So it's a pay, it's 10 to 120 feet of thickness, right? So that's where you could drill into and frack for oil, 10 to 120 feet in the Bakken. In the Eagle Ford, it's about 150 to 300 feet, right? So you could drill down and then, drill horizontally and then frack in there, and that's where you find the oils, right? It's 150, 300 feet thick. Just to put in perspective, try to put this in terms that you guys can understand. The Permian, right? And this is West Texas, because the Eagle Ford is located in Southeast Texas. The Bakken is located in North Dakota. Again, traveling there was amazing. It was pretty cool up there. There's nothing up there. People making a fortune up there during the oil boom before it kind of bust over the past couple of years. We went there early on, I think in 2012, 13, and seeing, people from Walmart making like $25 an hour. This is before, inflation now and stuff, when everyone else was making $12 an hour and $8 an hour, whatever it was. But it's incredible how much they were paying them. But in the Permian, getting back to that, they offer formations that are 1,300 to 1,800 feet, right, which is 12 times the Bakken thickness. So the drilling area is massive, where they could drill 15 to 18,000 feet at near 100% accuracy to find oil. Why is it 100% accuracy? Because a lot of the area has drilled already, and they know exactly where the oil is. So when you look at Permian and seeing how great they're doing in the Permian, Exxon, they were late to the party, but think of all the other players within the Permian. You're wondering why oil profits. I mean, just look. I'll cover this more with Daniel tomorrow, but when you're looking at, I just brought up the earnings that are going to be reported today, and they show you from last year to this year, and you'll see a lot of them, down, and some of them up a little bit, the companies, and then you get to the oil companies, and it's like a 300% increase from last year, 200% increase from last year. These are like the biggest companies, right? It's amazing, right, to see year over year how much, and again, that's from oil prices going higher, these guys investing, these guys cutting costs for like 4 or 5 years, and just, the environment's absolutely perfect for them. But getting back to the point here, when you become a massive producer of oil, it makes you an incredibly powerful nation, right? So you have Europe, Germany, Finland, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Lithuania, all import more than 30% of the oil and petroleum products from Russia. And we know what happened with them, right? It's a very dangerous situation. So even China is a very small producer, producing 5 million barrels a day, yet they consume 15 million. In the U.S., we're the largest producer right now, back and forth with Saudi Arabia. We produce 19 million barrels a day and consume about 19 million barrels a day. It makes us incredibly powerful. So the climate change crazies, again, they're going to do everything they can to have our companies produce less fossil fuels. Being the largest oil producer in the world makes us the most powerful nation, most powerful military, allows us to dictate terms on deals with every country. And the massive profits that these companies are generating, they're investing heavily into alternatives. I mean, ExxonMobil said the company's going to reach net zero in Permian Basin by 2030. That's what they're doing. Doesn't have to be a total shutoff. Okay? We understand that. Doesn't have to be a total shutoff. But we need to remember that. That makes us incredibly, incredibly powerful. The more oil we produce, it's something everyone needs. It powers the world. It powers electricity, which electricity powers all technology. So it's not the technology companies, right? It's the oil companies. And they're back. And they're going to be back for a while because of the policies that are in place. And I mentioned earlier, internationally, international drilling is picking up incredibly, which is why that kind of held back. If you're looking at oil companies early on last year, a little bit year before, when oil companies started taking off, we really didn't see the same moves in the stock prices when it comes to the Halliburtons, right? The energy service companies, the Schlumbergers, right? We didn't really see that. So the Baker Hughes. But now, if you listen to those calls, they're going to start returning money back to investors. They're starting to make a fortune, and they're seeing massive, massive demand, which is going to continue because Europe's not going to put themselves in that place anymore. But we're talking about many, many, many years of demand. So if you look within oil, if you think you missed it or whatever, I mean, the oil service companies have not gone up as much. They're kind of trading, I believe, at 52-week highs. I mean, oil has pulled back over the past week or so. We have a name in our portfolio, probably going to add to it. We're doing very well with it. We took a half position, but that's where you're going to find a lot of value within the oil industry and also on this pullback in natural gas. Holy cow. I mean, natural gas pulled back incredibly. Daniel and I are going to talk a lot about that tomorrow. We do have a lot of companies reporting earnings, especially the large technology companies, but we want to talk a little bit more about oil, which is cool. But Exxon is a buy. I mean, it's pulling back after these amazing earnings, probably because investors are expecting a large buyback announcement. They didn't get it, but that's going to come. Dividends over 3%. We're going to be raised every year. Massive amounts of free cash flow. They're going to be investing everywhere. Just a staple that should be part of your portfolio. I mean, kudos to Daniel, who has been riding the XOM train from the low 50s, where he recommended our Dollar Stock Club portfolio in mid-2021. Great call by him. And he lets me know about it every single day, which is cool. Actually, Dan's like me. He'll talk more about his losers than his winners. But seriously, great call. And just a name that should be a staple in your portfolio, because if you're looking at just going forward, right? I mean, the tailwinds are going to continue. They're going to continue for these companies. You're going to see massive international drilling, which Exxon has a lot of exposure to. Also, U.S. and the Permian, they're just operating, firing all cylinders. And those investments and that money, dividends are going to be raised, continue to be raised, and they will buy back stock in the future. So just a name that makes a lot of sense over the next few years, especially if you are, a buy and hold type of person.